Coming up, Mayor Teresa Harding responds to the recent media storm over actions of former councillor David Pahlke, who was in the public gallery last April. And later in the episode, David Pahlke takes ownership of his hand gesture and explains what was happening at the time. Also on the show, highlights from Ipswich City Council's July meeting and Nicole Jonic's resignation from 4 committees earlier this month. With the election only months away, will Teresa Harding run for a second term? It's Friday, July 28, 2023, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Thank you for speaking with Ipswich Today, Mayor Harding.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Alan.
Mayor, since we last spoke, headlines are still being made from the April 27 meeting of Council. Now, that's the one where there was 25 minutes of discussion about names of former councillors appearing on replacement information signs. Councillors ultimately voted to retain the names. You were the only one that voted against. And all this was happening while David Pahlke was in the public gallery. And you did go in pretty hard, talking about it being inappropriate and vain. And this was about the moment that Pahlke made his hand gestures. How was this found some 3 or 4 months later? And is it the kind of image we really want on TV and in the papers as a city?
I was obviously speaking to the notice of motion at the time, so I didn't see Mr Pahlke's hand gesture in person. However, the footage was actually brought to my attention by a concerned resident, I think the Thursday or the Friday before the media found out. When I was told it on the Thursday or the Friday, I didn't check. I didn't believe it, actually. I didn't check till the Sunday night at the footage. And I was really shocked to see Mr Pahlke using his hands to mimic cocking a gun and to shoot at me. Now, I did say hello to Mr Pahlke on my way into the meeting and he turned his back on me. And just so you know that after the meeting, I went up to him to chat to him and he completely ignored me. So, look, Mr Pahlke can put whatever name he likes to his hand gesture, but the footage is publicly available and it's pretty clear what he's doing. And, Alan, look, I make no apologies for calling out the bad behaviour of dismissed councillors. I've done so throughout the term and I'll continue to do so in the future if needed.
You told Ipswich News Today editor Cameron Thompson that you referred the matter to the CEO for further investigation. Has anything happened and what will or what do you want to happen? Yes,
I did write to the CEO that same week asking her to investigate, to look at it. She hasn't come back to me yet. But I think it's really important for both residents and investors to have trust and confidence in the good governance of this council. And I know that I won't tolerate the poor judgment and behaviour of the previous administration. And I've received so much support and feedback, Alan, from the community since this footage has come to light. People have come forward to me with their own stories about Mr Pahlke. And I'm not surprised to see that the usual supporters of Pahlke and the previous council jumped to Mr Pahlke's defence in trying to shame me into having real concerns about this really bad behaviour. And, Alan, since this footage, I have learnt that Mr Pahlke has been identified by the state government as a vexatious and frivolous complainant against me. And also, even more shockingly, watching the footage on Channel 9, was that he called me evil, effing evil. So I want to apologise for that dreadful behaviour. And I'm not sure if any woman would not have some level of concern in the response to that bizarre behaviour. It's just dreadful, shocking, disgusting behaviour.
Let's move on to the July Council meeting from the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee report. The hotel and accommodation strategy, which is focused on increasing the amount of short-term accommodation, there was some further discussion about whether to include residential or not during the council meeting. What are you wanting to achieve with this and why?
Look, we really need to address the significant undersupply of short-term and hotel accommodation at Ipswich. We've discussed it for some time in council, and I really felt that there should be something done about it. There's been a lot of discussion and chatter, and I think this piece of work was well overdue, particularly in light of the opportunities that we'll have leading up to the 2032 Games, but other events that were coming to Ipswich as well. So that's why I brought forward this notice of motion, and I strongly believe that the answer to the challenges lie with the development industry. So we need to be, really successful at pulling those good planning levers and incentives and settings to make sure that we, attract really good development here.
At one point, we were attracting developers to build hotel accommodation. I used the example of the building that was erected in South Street, which is now an aged care facility. So how do you reverse that trend if the development industry is not super keen?
Look, the feedback we're getting from the development industry at this stage is that they're not ready for it yet, but that doesn't mean we can't work on attracting that so we can pounce on those opportunities when they come on. We do show potential investors through regularly, and we work with every single one of them, but I am looking at how we can do other things. We've already decided with our in our budget that we would, waiver fees for certain developments as well. So, and also we've brought out our Shop Top Living initiative as well for the CBD. So look, we'll continue to do that, but I think there's a lot more that council can do to attract, really great offerings.
From the Governance and Transparency Report, the regular report from the Queensland Audit Office can sometimes have a few barbs in it, but this one appears to be a fair report with no significant deficiencies. How do you view it?
Oh, look, the council has recorded its strongest result in almost a decade following, that independent assessment by QAO. The way that council manages its people, its systems and processes to deliver the financial reporting is its highest rating since 2015. So I think it's great recognition of the council's determination to act to act transparently and with integrity, and just we have a real strong belief that effective governance will lead to better outcomes for our community. So look, really pleased to see the results from our council, and I'm pleased to see that our council officers are also continuing to work really hard to get really good results for our community.
There was one major whoopsie with a wrong number published for a contract on council's website. I guess we all make one mistake, and we can see how that's happened, and the officers have very clearly owned up and corrected that problem. The QAO report itself was locked as confidential for the committee meeting. Again, I presume that's a bit of an oversight, but it was certainly fixed for the council meeting. Are you going to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, look, in terms of the contract details, the number that was published was the value of the initial term of the contract, not the full term of the contract. So that's been corrected. So that was just a small process issue. The report was confidential upon request of the QAO, while some sensitive information was being clarified. And once that was rectified, the report was made publicly available for the full council meeting.
Okay, from the Community, Culture, Arts and Sport Committee, always a good news item, and that is reporting when the next Ipswich Show holiday will be.
Yeah, 17th of May. Friday the 17th of May next year will be 151st Ipswich Show. So please lock that in your calendar. No one has an excuse to not go. So we expect it to be a really, really fun show. I'm
sure President Darren Zano and the committee and volunteers are already working on it, Mayor Harding.
I'm sure they are. You may know some.
Yes. From the Economic and Industry Development Committee, there was a presentation from Westmoreton Health, and it was a very sobering presentation. It wasn't sugar-coated. Chairman Mike Willis was very direct in his comments about the disadvantages we face as a community, and one of those examples was triple ramping. What will council now do with this information?
Look, some of this information has been available for many years. It's been listed in their strategic plan, certainly since I've come to council. I remember 3 years ago getting the briefing where you could see that a third of the people that present themselves to a hospital in Westmoreton have to go outside. And that's a huge burden on the people of Ipswich because it's very expensive to park and to travel there, as well as it's not a great outcome for our community. I also see constantly, even this week, some very negative media on the ramping at Ipswich and what's happening there. And we've got a really good board there. They just need the money. I know they are getting money now, but they need more. We're playing catch up. So I applaud the board and the CEO. They're working very hard to get the best outcomes for the people of Ipswich.
I think it's a case of, as with many facilities, and I'm thinking like a sporting stadium, the facilities at the hospital, that the best thing about Ipswich is we're so close to Brisbane, and when you want this infrastructure, the worst thing about Ipswich is how close we are to Brisbane.
It is, it's definitely. And look, Michael and the CEO had also spoke about the economic benefits of the health sector and what Westmoreton Health do. They produce, Westmoreton Health is a major driver in our economy with about $888 million input in 2020. So a provider of over 4,000 jobs. So they're a huge employer, and obviously there's the associated allied health industries as well. So it's not just what we need for our health and wellbeing, but it's a huge economic driver for us being that hub of health here.
Another item we can't ignore this month is Councillor Jonic resigning from 4 committees earlier in the month, and quoted in the media as saying it's over lack of leadership in council. It's a major protest in the final months before the election. Did you know this was coming?
I got told the night before. The CEO sent out an email to all the councillors about 8:30 at night the night before.
I guess it's also fair to say it's not the first run-in you've had with Councillor Jonic. Have either of you made any attempts to mend fences or find some common ground?
Look, I'm not sure if this was really a protest or just politics, and as we get closer to the election in March, we'll probably see what happens. But either way, Councillor Jonic did not raise these concerns with me before the media, and I can honestly say my door is always open. I offer the opportunity to meet up regularly with every councillor. Whether they choose to take up the offer or not is up to them. I can only lead the horse to water, Alan. And I think it's really important to note that I'm actually not Councillor Jonic's boss. I'm not the boss of any of the councillors, that the community is, and she is a community leader in her own right. So what she makes of being a committee chair or divisional councillor is up to her, and she's answerable to the community that elected her.
Now there's talk that Nicole Jonic will run for mayor, speculation in at least one of the local papers. Firstly, are you running again?
Of course, and I've always had the intention to run again, and I really want to continue to improve this great city. And look, I'll make a bit more of a media splash about it later on, but at the moment my focus is very much on being the mayor and delivering great services to the people of Ipswich.
So are you concerned if Nicole Jonic puts up her hand for mayor?
You know what, Alan, I love democracy. I encourage anyone who wants to run for mayor or council to do it. We need to have a robust democracy. We saw what happened in the past when councillors and mayors weren't challenged. I think it's an important part. So if anyone wants to do it, I encourage them to do it.
Let's move on to some fun stuff now. The Spark Festival and Dinosaurs, 2 significant events. Now, both were really great for the city from where I sat. Were you happy with the crowd numbers for Spark and with the changed focus on Brisbane Street?
Look, I haven't seen the final numbers. Obviously, I can only go on what I saw when I was out, and the numbers were really great. And in particular, I just want to highlight it was 36 events over 11 days. So it wasn't just the Delight activation in Darcy Doyle. We had activities in Springfield, Ripley, Rosewood, Redbank Plains, Ipswich Central, all over the city. So I think that was a really important thing that we do have that all over our city. But the local restaurants and cafes and businesses in Ipswich Central, Lavern, Riverlink, they loved it as well. They got a huge surge, and we certainly had a lot of people who said they hadn't been to Ipswich Central for some time, for some years. So it was great to see people come back and enjoy it.
It's interesting you say about the cafes being open because on my regular catch-up with Walter Williams and Ashley Mack, Walt was up there a couple of times and he said that even one night the Rusty Nail wasn't open. So he was a bit concerned that the retailers weren't taking advantage. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, look, we let them know well beforehand, and it's up to them. I think most of them aren't open 7 nights. But that's part of us developing and keep working with them. What I quite liked with the dinosaurs is that we worked for some time with the cafe. So, Stella Rossa had, dinosaur-themed food. So we had the areas there. The cafes have that dinosaur theme there in the mall, which is really great to see.
Talking of the dinosaurs, I did happen to land myself coming up the elevator from the car park in Tilma Place a couple of times during that time, and it was very, very busy, I got to say. The kids were loving it.
Yeah, we had over, each day we're getting over 7,000 people come in, and I think we had over 50,000 attendances. And even during the day, you could go into Dominic's Cafe for lunch, you could see they were busy, and again, they had dinosaur-themed stuff as well. It was really great to see. I guess my only thing for next time is that I think we need more face painters and more balloon twisters because the queues there are about 20 minutes, I think.
You can never have too many of those when there's lots of kids. Look, on that happy note, Mayor Teresa Harding, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for speaking with Ipswich Today.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you to listeners.
Former Division 10 councillor David Pahlke is back in the headlines after being punted from office when the state government dismissed all Ipswich councillors in 2018. I caught up with him earlier this week. Thanks for speaking with Ipswich Today, David Pahlke.
Yeah, hi Alan.
You returned to the council chamber back on April 27th. It was the first time, I think, since 2018. But this time as a member of the public, you were there to witness a vote about retaining former councillors' names on information signs. When did you know the sign at Cobb & Co. Park in Rosewood had been replaced without your name?
Well, I thought I noticed it earlier this year. but they tell me that it was replaced 2 years ago, and I find that a bit strange because I get in that park a fair bit walking through it, but it was replaced, I'm told, 2 years ago.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, I was a little bit annoyed about my name being taken off signs because I found another sign yesterday at Haigsley I'd forgotten about, and it was 1998, 25 years ago.
And that one's still intact?
That's still intact.
During that council meeting, Teresa Harding had a few things to say. I'll just bring up a couple of points. Do you agree with the Mayor that Ipswich is likely the only council in Australia where councillors' names are on information signs?
I don't know. I haven't done any checking. I'm just assuming that it does exist somewhere else.
And
remember, though, I did a fair bit of research into the history of this area over 25 years.
I suppose we need to clarify too the difference between information signs and commemorative plaques. So it's totally understandable that commemorative plaques have councillors' names on them. So does Teresa Harding have a point about information signs?
Well, I suppose it's history. It's history, and that's why it was halfway through the 25-minute debate on the removal of my name from council signs, and the Mayor was obviously starting to lose the debate. Nearly all councillors were simply not agreeing with her. It was looking highly likely she was going to lose a vote, and she did, big time, 8 votes to 1.
You said in one local paper in the last week that it really hurt at that moment when she was having a go. Yes.
I did not make any comment or noise, and I felt at the time it was a personal gesture what I did. I own it. I asked listeners to have a listen to the council's live streaming as to what she was saying about me at the exact time I made the gesture. It was not nice.
And what was going through your mind at that time?
Well, I was surprised at the number of councillors who took my side and wanted my name to stay. That stunned me a little bit. And when she made that comments about me, I was hurt.
And you just involuntarily made those hand gestures.
I said, I gotcha. You're going to get shot down in flames. And I was proven correct. 8 votes to 1.
3 months later, the whole thing pops up on Channel 9 News. How do you think that happened and why?
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? I can understand why some would see it differently if they don't know the background. This meeting was some 4 months ago. Why is it in question now? Question mark, question mark. Given all the disunity going on in council and the calls in the press about lack of leadership, I gather it was probably leaked to Channel 9 to muddy the waters and give the Mayor some substance.
Well, the video itself appears not to have been leaked, but somebody was pointed in the right direction, so it appears. At first, I was struggling to find the clip used by Channel 9 on Council's YouTube channel, but I eventually found it 1 hour and 27 minutes in from the start. I was looking in the wide shot where the public gallery is behind the councillors, but it's actually tucked up on the right-hand corner at one point. Did you know that you'd been recorded?
No, I did not. In fact, I had to. It's 1 hour, 27 minutes, 28 seconds exactly when I did it.
So where to from here, David Pahlke? Is your name going to be restored on that information sign?
I believe it is, except for that one sign. It won't be restored, but I could live with that, I suppose. As I said, some of these signs are 25 years old, and it's history. It's history. You can't undo history. And I did a lot of research into the history of this area.
It's also been widely covered that you're 70 this year. Have you 100% ruled out running at the next council election?
Oh, yes, I have. I was 90% sure I wasn't going to run. But, if they had 10 divisions, I thought I might have thought about it. But no. I'm 70 years of age. As one journalist said, get on with my life, enjoy retirement. So I'll enjoy retirement.
David Pahlke, thanks so much for speaking with Ipswich Today.
Okay.
And that's it for this episode. Don't forget to look for handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio, or play Ipswich Today on smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.